Good morning, everyone. Deacon Ed McCormick here. And this morning I'd like to continue my series on the meaning of Jesus' resurrection by talking to you about the topic of motivation. And by this I mean, what are some of the dominant forces or influences on your life? What seems to drive how we treat each other, how we react to situations? And there's so many various forces and influences that shape how we react and respond to people and circumstances. Let me give you an example. Years ago, I was teaching at Georgetown University. I was a new professor there, teaching part-time. And one of my colleagues had been honored in the school newspaper, the Hoya, as one of the best professors of the year. And a student was showing me this in the paper. And as she's showing this to me, instead of celebrating this achievement for this fella, I started to point out in little ways in which he did have flaws. He wasn't as great as everyone made him out to be. You see, I was acting out of jealousy and a sense of insecurity. When I was in high school, I had this great job as a delivery boy for a local pharmacy. And I liked the job. I liked the pharmacist who ran the place. He was great with the customers. But every once in a while, you never knew when, but every once in a while he would just blow his stack. He would just get mad. And it often wasn't at me or at a customer. You never knew why or what. But he was kind of living out of his own frustrations. He was being driven by and influenced by his own anger. And all of us in our lives can be driven by fear, can be influenced by our insecurities, by pain, by emptiness, by loss, by resentments. Many of these forces that can influence us. And I'm going into this because in the last 2 Sundays in the gospel, Jesus has been inviting us to abide in him, to dwell or live from him and his life. You see, we live in a world where our economic and political systems are set up so that people abide in or live from the accumulation of power and wealth. And boy, that leads to a lot of hurt people. That leads to often brutal situations and unjust situations where so many people are excluded from power and from access to wealth. And into that world, and into these many forces that influence how we react and treat each other, Jesus comes. And he's inviting us to live from a different kind of power, a different kind of influence. He's inviting us, he's calling us to live from the life that he shares with the mystery of God, because he abides in the Father and the Father abides in him. This is this infinite, eternal exchange of love and life. It is this boundless pool of life and reality. It's not up there somewhere, but actually is just underneath the surface of everything. It's the reality within reality. And he is constantly calling us out of our fear and our frustration, our emptiness, our resentments, out of our need for power and control, into his presence, his love, his life. And perhaps there have been people in your life who have occasionally lived from this, from what Jesus offers us. They have been people of peace and generosity, people of love, people who have stood up for justice and truth, people who have a much more expansive view of reality, who sense the wonder and mystery of things, while also working to help the poor and the lonely, the lost and abandoned. And maybe you too have had some moments where you've found yourself all of a sudden tapping into a kind of presence, a life, a power that is just much bigger than you, that kind of frees you. It kind of expands your heart and mind, opens you up. You find yourself to be more generous. You find yourself being able to let go of past grudges and wounds. And all of a sudden you're compassionate. You're connecting with people. You're creative. You're courageous. You're open. So this is what the Lord is inviting us to. This is the deep, true, real kind of motivation that He wants to have within our friendships and our marriages and our families and institutions. This will change the world. This is what it means to abide in Jesus.